Okay, this is going to be thoroughly off the cuff here, but we'll see if it will do the thing that I think it will do that'd be nice for your trusses. So, just going to quickly draw just any sort of truss type thing here. This is just the, you know, just a proxy truss, which I already think is going to be super ugly. Oh yeah, it's going to be crazy ugly. We'll deform it a little. Well, didn't think that through. Let's do one of these. Yeah, let's say that's a truss. This needs to get a little longer. We'll scale 1D in here. Okay, we'll call that a truss, and we're going to make it less ugly, probably. That's not bad. Okay, so the T-splines component of this. Right now we're just going to reference this. I'm going to lock it. It could go on its own layer. So for the T-splines thing, I haven't T-splines in a hot minute, so yeah, so in the primitives we've got plane, and so it's asking, command line stuff, a couple questions about it. We don't need 3-point, we don't need vertical, that's all fine. Let's do center. We're also going to reduce the number of faces in both the X and the Y to 1. Don't care about axial symmetry. And we're just going to make just one of these. We'll copy that to a few different points here. We won't do the whole truss, we'll just do a little bit of the truss. Sorry if my dogs are coming through in the background. So the thing we want to do with this now, we got these T-spline objects. We're going to grab them. We're going to turn on T-splines. We're going to go to vertex mode. Oh, interesting. That's unexpected. Yeah, I need these to be squarer, simpler. Huh. It's not the outcome I was expecting there. Okay, we might have to switch it. We'll try edges. The thing we want to do here is we just want to set, I'm going to turn off the gumball. We're going to use T-splines, rotation tools and stuff. What we want to do is we just want a face. Man, that's really strange. I don't know why it's behaving as though this is a higher degree object than it is. I don't T-splines quite enough to be able to dig it. Yeah, so there's these extra handles here that I don't want. They're making it weird, but anyways, we'll make it work. So we just want to sort of set them up like this. And really what we can probably do is we'll set up like 2 or 3 of them and then we'll just copy them around. But what we want is we want a face perpendicular to each curve of the truss. So scoot this over. Tsplines is a mesh modeler. Tsplines is basically Maya inside Rhino, with all the weirdness that you might imagine that would entail. Mesh modeling. There are ways to mesh model precisely, and people who are actually good at it. There's also ways to do this with hotkeys, but to hell with that. People who are actually, I think, good mesh modelers tend to be very precise, but mesh modeling is not as easy to be precise with as NURBS modeling. So these are not the very clean objects I pictured when I imagined this process, but it'll do. It'll be fine. So we just need to set these up so that we've got a face per. Might get tricky here. Oh, you know what? Maybe there's a much better way to do this. Let's see. If I go like this. Let's say I make a thing that looks like that. Oh, wait, we need one more. We need to close it. And then if I go planar surf in there, I think I might be able to just take this surf and convert it to a T-spline. Surface. Oh, and then it abstracts it in that way because it doesn't understand that it's trimmed. Okay. Well, that's alright. It's worth a shot. Would have made this much easier. Basically just want an edge pointed at each arm of the truss, because those edges are going to allow us to make faces there in a second, and then we're going to extrude out from those faces. This is going to be a problem. I need to split this. I need to multi-cut it. I don't know if there's a multi-cut function in T-splines. And we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. We'll see how that goes. I got some thoughts about it, but let's say that's the shape. Let's do these three, and we'll see how. Oh, damn it! I need to press that. We'll see how close I get. So we're gonna take. Nope. Okay. We want face mode. We'll select all our faces, and we're also just gonna hop over. We're gonna start working perspective for the rest of this, I think. And then we want. I think it's TS extrude should do it. Well, that did something. Wasn't what I wanted though, I don't think. Okay, this extrude faces. I don't want to extrude along. I just want to extrude relative to normal. That's got to be a thing, right? Well, it apparently is. No, that's very strange. That is not the behavior I would have hoped for. So there's a curve to extrude along. Let's see if it'll let me do it now. Extrude along. And, oh, okay, well we don't want 10 subdivisions, we want 1. We'll extrude along this curve, get a box, and we're just gonna come on, there we go. We'll just repeat that process for all of them, so I'm just gonna turn off my TS mode so I can just grab this curve. We'll just copy this curve so they're all the same thickness. This may be easier to do making these shapes out of boxes instead of planes. In Maya, it would not matter, but it would totally work this way, and maybe it can work this way in T-splines, and I just don't know the command I want. But so we've got these primitives, or these little shapes. So T-splines has smooth mode and not smooth mode, which just what? How is this not making this smooth? This is very strange. Anyways, we'll look into that further in a minute. The thing we want to do to get this calatravel looking sexy, kind of organic truss is we're just going to select 2 faces. They're on the same arm of the truss. And then there should be a bridge face command, I believe, if I recall how this works. Bridge. So there's 2 faces. Similar to a loft, we want to make sure the arrows are fit together. We'll try 3 segments for now. That may be too many. Yeah, so we've got this bridge between these. Oh, that's why they weren't toggling smooth. They don't have bottoms on them. Strange. Okay. Let's scrap this, and we'll do a different thing. We'll do the same thing with cubes, which should work a little bit. A little bit better. Center. 1 cube. Put grid snap back on, just to make them a fixed size. Here's a cube, and this is the smooth mode I was talking about. So if I toggle smooth mode, now that's a cube, right? So we'll bring sort of object, and we'll just scooch this down. You could, if you were so inclined, position it very precisely on the curve, but that doesn't really matter for our purposes. Toggle over to edge mode. We're just going to scoot this over here, this over here. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's be smart about this. Let's grab this, and we will, holding Alt, drag some copies. Oh, apparently that doesn't work with, oh, interesting. The gumball looks like if you hold Alt, repositions, possibly? No? Strange. Or not the gumball, the Tspline's version of a gumball. But Rhino's version of a gumball, you can totally hold Alt. We're just gonna just go away for now. Let's work the Rhino one. So we've got our cubes. Then we'll go through each cube and we'll just manipulate the edges so that it is. Actually, I'm gonna go back to the T-splines one just so it's not grid snapping on me. Manipulate the edges till we got a face pointed at along each arm of the truss. And we're going to repeat that for each of these things, and we may need to add a division in the face of the one that has more arms associated with it here. Yeah, so this is probably fine here. Something like that, right? All we really, you know, we're just going to grab this face and pull it out so it's of a similar size. So the faces, these faces are of a similar scale. You could take the time to make them identical in scale. It's probably not necessary. And then this one here, we're going to need to get a little fancier with it. Is there a T-splines version of... Oh yeah, okay. We'll insert an edge. Sure, you're unable to complete the command. That makes sense. And we'll go insert edge. Edge loop to be duplicated. We'll go with... So it's this one here. And then we'll do it. Okay. So it is, we actually want us to go, let me just repeat that. Strange. Again, not quite the behavior I was expecting. That's okay though. So we'll go with this one here. We will go insert edge simple. Might need two of them. Yeah, there we go. So now we've done that, we can manipulate this to make our little house shape that will let us do the thing we're trying to do with number of faces. And so we got these primitives we're going to work with. These are our sort of joints. You can do things like add some extra sort of definition to them so they're a little smoother. But if we pop over to smooth mode, they're already fairly smooth. So we toggle that back for now. I believe if you're running hotkeys, I think it's tab is the hotkey for that, but I haven't checked recently. So we'll grab a couple faces, and then we can, where did it go? Looking at it like a second ago. Bridge them. Those are our faces we want to bridge. Arrows are going the same way, so that's fine. And then we'll just, oh, and there's another one of those funny differences between. So if you double click an edge, it'll give you the edge loop. So we're just going to grab the edge loops in the middle, and then clicking the middle of the scale tool, just going to scale those down a little. And we're just going to repeat this process for the other arms of our truss that we care about here. So we'll bridge those. Sure, looks good. Do this one here as well right now. And then we can just pop back over to edge mode. Grab those, and we'll scale them a little. Do this here. Scale these a little. And now, when we pop this over to smooth mode, get something that's like a kind of, you know, sort of hot parametric looking thing. And then this would be easy to keep going with, right? Because so we can take, I should have copied that before I did things to it, but that's okay. We can just grab another cube here. Oh, we want center on that. Boom, cube, 1, 2. And then we'll go object, grab this, scoot this guy down. So it's somewhat in line with the rest of the truss. I don't really care too much, you know. Sort of thing where if it was you're gonna build it, you might need to make sure it's actually flat, but for our purposes, it's probably fine. Toggle smooth. going to grab an edge, pair of edges. These two edges, we'd like to cut those with insert an edge loop. As an edge loop, so we'll tug this forward. We'll grab this and this, scoot them back. A nice way to widen things symmetrically is just to scale them out from each other, so we can just scale those out a little. So now we got another piece for this, so we're actually just going to use the gumball as a faster way to copy. Whoa, nope. We need to be in object mode for that and not edge mode. We're going to have some interesting outcomes. There we go. That's the one we want. And then, like so. And we can delete this one here. And let's do one more set on top of this. We'll go away. Just scoot that over. So let's just quickly play through these. So this, we're going to turn this back to not smooth mode, because I think it's a little easier to look at, and importantly, working in smooth mode can be a little deceptive about what's actually going on in your file. But having done that, we can start bridging things together. That's fine. We'll just keep going through, slamming pairs of faces together until we've done the whole thing. And then we'll go back through on another pass and scale the middles of the arms downward, which is not necessary. Like, we're not. This is still will still be a thing if we don't do that. Like, if I just grab this object now and we toggle smooth mode on it eventually. So it's still there is still, you know, geometry there and it looks fine. I think it looks a little better if it gets smaller in the middle. You can also make life a little easier for yourself here if you do 2 divisions instead of 3, and so only have one center to scale around. It'll look a little different, but that may be fine for whatever you're doing. Tsplines is one of the heaviest pieces of software I've ever used if you're using smooth mode, because it is basically emulating another modeler inside Rhino. So I typically like to go into smooth mode only to check what I'm doing, which is also like how I like to work in Maya. Basically, is just live in unsmoothed, and then smooth only just to verify that it's doing what you think it's doing. But anyways, let's say this is our truss. You can repeat the process by adding, you know, take this and you can flip it around and start chaining them together. But if this is our truss, there's a couple things we have to do to get it back into Rhino, or into Rhino geometry, because right now this is technically a mesh, which Rhino can't really do very much to, and that you can't get very much out of in Rhino. But we go Tsplines, convert to Rhino object, and now we will have my gumball back on and get rid of this. We will have a Rhino polysurface. I think that is good practice to do if you're working in Tsplines is to take your Tspline original and copy it to a backup layer, because now that this is a Rhino object, I can't bring it back into Tsplines. So it's stuck. Any changes I want to make, I'd have to make using Rhino tools. But that's just a best practices type thing. Anyways, I hope this has been helpful, and I'm gonna kill the recording.